You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1927. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices.
This broadcast was aired on Friday, February the 18th of 1927. If you are making plans for an old-fashioned flower garden, you may find just the information you want in Aunt Sammy's chat. All information approved by the United States Department of Agriculture. The recipe for Devil's Food Cake, which concludes this program, will come in handy for the Sunday dinner.
Welcome to the Homemaker Show, where useful tips and recipes flow from Aunt Sammy with love so true, and the Department of Agriculture too. Gather round and take a seat. We've got everything you need to eat. Practical info for your home. Recipes to keep you strong. For your family, day and night. We'll guide you right with all our might.
The other morning, I ran over to my next-door neighbor's to borrow a little baking powder. I found my friend sitting in the kitchen, entirely surrounded by seed catalogs, flower bulletins, and the like. "Come into the garden, Maud," said she, "and help me decide what to plant and where to plant it. I don't know a thing about raising flowers. How could I, living in an apartment house most of my life? But I am going to study the flower catalogs and send for some of the bulletins published by my state college and the United States Department of Agriculture and see if I can have a garden. I want all the old-fashioned annual flowering plants such as marigolds, nasturtiums, zinnias, periwinkles, and sweet alyssum because they can be grown from seed without very much trouble and they're adapted to ordinary flowering conditions. I am going to begin my garden plans early. If I don't get a good stand of plants with the first seeding, I'll try again under more favorable conditions. I read that in the catalog, and I think it's a good idea. What shall I have in my garden, Aunt Sammy, besides marigolds, nasturtiums, zinnias, periwinkles, and sweet alyssum?" 4 o'clocks. No garden is complete without 4 o'clocks. And petunias, please have lots of petunias. The single mixed petunias will add a great variety of color to your backyard, and they bloom about all summer. "Do petunias require any particular kind of soil?" inquired my neighbor. Number petunias grow on almost any soil where there is plenty of sunshine and enough water to keep them alive. Of course, you must level and smooth the surface of the soil and apply some fertilizer before you plant the petunias. It's a bit too early to plant them now, but you can make your plans and set the ground in shape. Don't sow the seed till the weather's warm and settled. One of the garden advisors in the Department of Agriculture told me that the plants can be started in a box in the house. Then, when the weather gets warm, the petunias can be transplanted. Or you can sow the seed of petunias right on the surface of the ground and rake them into the soil a trifle. Petunia seed is very, very small, and the chances are you'll get the plants too thick in some places, so you'll have to thin them out to stand 6 or 8 inches apart. As I said before, petunias require no particular kind of soil, just so they get plenty of sunshine and an occasional rain, or watering. But don't forget to level and smooth the surface of the soil, and apply some fertilizer before you plant your petunias. "Know anything about zinnias?" "I certainly do. I lived for a good many years in a section of the United States which is noted for its hot, dry summers. When all the other flowers in our garden would droop and die, the zinnias would cheerfully carry on throughout the summer. I wouldn't think of having a flower garden without a bed of hardy, colorful zinnias. Another flower I like is nasturtiums. They're my favorite flower. Because the leaves can be used in sandwiches?" interrupted my neighbor innocently. "No, indeed. Because they are so beautiful in themselves. I think they make a most attractive centerpiece for the table, especially when they're arranged rather loosely, with a few of the leaves mixed with them. I bought a dull blue pottery bowl at the 10-cent store the other day. Won't nasturtiums be lovely in it?" They will, agreed my next-door neighbor. I wonder if they're hard to grow. Not at all. The seeds of the nasturtium can be planted in the ground right where the plants are to grow. Why don't you plant some of the dwarf nasturtiums on each side of your walk in narrow borders, or you might plant the nasturtiums farther back with sweet alyssum next to the walk. Another very pretty arrangement is made of tall nasturtiums grown on a fence, dwarf nasturtiums in front of the tall ones, and sweet alyssum in front of the dwarf nasturtiums. Sounds attractive, said my neighbor. I wish you'd tell me the name of the bright red flower I saw in so many gardens last summer. That must have been scarlet sage, I told her. Scarlet sage is one of the showiest of the annuals that can be grown from seed. However, the garden advisor I told you about says it's usually best to start the plants in a box in the house and then transplant them to the garden. The bright red flowers of the scarlet sage are especially striking when the plants are grown in front of cool green backgrounds such as tall nasturtiums. Scarlet sage would be especially effective growing along your green hedge. Scarlet sage wants plenty of sunshine and an occasional watering, but it stands a good deal of abuse. It's like Dazinia. I wish, said my friend plaintively, that I had a whole backyard garden full of the flowers we've talked about and roses. Do you suppose I could have a few rose bushes too? Of course you could. I'll tell you about roses some other time. I promised my family a devil's food cake for dinner, and I'll have to hurry home and make it. A devil's food cake, exclaimed my neighbor. Please copy the recipe for me so I can make one too. Here, write it on the back of this catalog. This is the recipe I copied from my next-door neighbor, the very same recipe I got from the Bureau of Home Economics last week. Would you like to write it down? If you are doing any extra baking tomorrow, you might like to try this cake for Sunday dinner. I assure you it is very good. For the devil's food cake, you will need 9 ingredients. Half a cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1 white saved for icing, 1 cup of milk, 2 squares of chocolate melted, 1 3/4 cups of flour, soft wheat, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of salt. 9 ingredients. I'll repeat them. Half a cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, 1 white saved for icing, 1 cup of milk, 2 squares of chocolate melted, 1 3/4 cups of flour, soft wheat, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, half a teaspoon of salt. Cream the butter and the sugar. Add the well-beaten eggs and mix well. Sift the dry ingredients and add to the first mixture alternately with the milk. Add the chocolate, which has been melted over steam, and the vanilla and beat until well mixed with the batter. Bake in a greased pan in a sheet for 35 minutes at a temperature between 300 degrees and 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Cover lightly with powdered sugar and serve. Or, if preferred, you can bake the cake in 2 layers and make a vanilla icing with the white of the egg as follows. 5 ingredients for the vanilla icing: 1 cup of granulated sugar, 4 tablespoons of cold water, 1 egg white, pinch of salt, half a teaspoon of vanilla. 5 ingredients. I'll read them again. 1 cup of granulated sugar, 4 tablespoons of cold water, 1 egg white, pinch of salt, half a teaspoon of vanilla. Now put the sugar, water, and unbeaten egg white into the upper part of a double boiler. Are you sure you got that? I am going to say it again because it's important. Put the sugar, water, and unbeaten egg white into the upper part of a double boiler. Have the water in the lower part boiling. Commence beating the mixture with a Dover beater at once, and beat constantly while it cooks for about 7 or 8 minutes. It should then appear just like ordinary boiled frosting, and should be almost thick enough for spreading. Take it from the stove and continue to beat about 5 minutes or until it has thickened. This is sufficient to ice a 3-layer cake on the top. If the icing is not sufficiently cooked, place it in the double boiler and recook for a short time. Or if it is too stiff, add a small quantity of water and cook again. In this devil's food cake mixture, sour milk can be used in place of the sweet milk. In that case, dissolve half of a teaspoon of soda in 1 teaspoon of water and add at the same time with the sour milk. The chocolate can also be increased by 1 square if you like a strong chocolate flavor. This recipe will be included in the spring supplement to the radio cookbooks. Monday, I shall broadcast a dinner menu you can use for Washington's birthday anniversary. So have your pencils sharpened and plenty of blank paper handy.
That helping hand, making life both sweet and grand.
Gather round and take a seat.
We've got everything you need to eat. Practical info for your home. Recipes to keep you strong. For your family, day and night. We'll guide you right with all our might.
This broadcast was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.